Hello, everybody. We are back with another episode of the Cowboys Fan versus the World podcast. It's your host with the most, Chris, and I want to wish a very special happy birthday to America. 4th of July, Independence Day, whatever you name it, the day of freedom. Very excited. I have a lot of plans going on later today for the 4th of July. As of this recording, this is going to pop up on the 4th of July. That's why I'm saying today. So hopefully you guys will be able to at least see the YouTube video on there. I did have some complications uploading it to Spotify and Amazon. So if you're one of my listeners on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, I am working on that. I'm trying to get that fixed just so that way I can actually start uploading it there. If not, make sure you guys head on over to the YouTube channel at Cowboys Fan vs. the World podcast. Hit there, subscribe, watch the full episode, and get your guys' input from, the NFL world through the eyes of me, a Dallas Cowboys fan. And by the way, speaking of 4th of July, what's more patriotic than, first of all, American football? And we're talking about America's team. So, very excited. I hope everyone's going to have a great time. Stay for this 4th of July. Stay safe. One thing I am very upset about, I am very upset that the GOAT of all GOATs, Joey Chestnut, is not going to be in the hot dog eating contest. That's really the only time I really watch that contest is the 4th of July, and it's so fun seeing Joey Chestnut just being a master at his craft. So it's just very disappointing, but I mean, it's for, it's for his own reasons. I get it. So he won't be in the contest this year. Very sad to not see the GOAT perform at his highest peak. So definitely going to be a little bit disappointing, but still going to watch it. I still think it's a lot of fun watching the lemonade chugging challenge thing too. That's just nuts on its own. I watched it last year and I was like, wow, I salute those people because Jesus, I don't think that much lemonade and that fast of no. I think I would probably not get sick, but I would definitely have a stomach. I wouldn't look at hot dogs the same for I probably wouldn't eat hot dogs for like a whole year if I had to eat that many in that fast of a sitting. Just eating them, yeah, no, I couldn't. I think I could not look at a hot dog the same ever again. So, but. Moving on, like I said, I hope everyone's going to have a great 4th of July. I hope everyone's going to stay safe, have a good time, whatever you're doing. Eat a lot of food. Just celebrate and enjoy the 4th of July. But we're back to talking Dallas Cowboys. And it's been a hectic couple weeks, man, with just Cowboy news and everything coming out of, the front office, basically, all the reports. And to be honest, it's very frustrating for at least me, the Dallas Cowboys fan. It's been really frustrating with what's going on over there just because of like what's not getting done. I mean, first of all, we're already talking about, it's kind of being a dead horse here, Jerry going all in, and we have not gone all in on anything. We brought in maybe a couple pieces and that's about it. So when there was a lot of great star free agents available, Derrick Henry, but either way, but now let's get into it, like more specifically. First up, we're going to talk about Ceedee Lamb. I got the Lamb jersey out today. Got to support my guy because I don't agree with what's going on right now with everything that's happening and all the reports coming out that they're kind of waiting for to work out a contract with Ceedee Lamb and trying to find a right price range. Obviously, Justin Jefferson broke the market for receivers because now that's going to be the highest point. And I know Ceedee Lamb doesn't want his type of money, but he wants to be paid pretty close to Justin Jefferson. And it seems like the Dallas Cowboys aren't biting on it right now. And my biggest thing is why? Why are we not paying Ceedee Lamb? Because it's just frustrating because what are we going to do without him? Like, what are we going to work with, Besides Jake Ferguson and Brandon Cooks, who else are we going to throw the ball to? Because we can only do so much. And keep in mind this, what happened the last time Dak didn't have a true number one wide receiver? When Dez got released a few years ago, they released Dez Bryant. What happened? We were struggling for a while. For like half of the season, we were struggling to throw the ball because we thought, okay, we'll move on from Dez. We'll try Michael Gallup, and it didn't work. So what did they have to do? Go get Amari Cooper from the Raiders, trade a first round, and bring him in. Because we couldn't wait for the draft. We were already, knee deep in the mud here because we were struggling so bad. So we had to go get a number one wide receiver like Amari Cooper, and it was super successful. And now we're having the same problem with Ceedee Lamb. It's why would we get rid of a number one wide receiver like this? And especially since he had such a great year, he showed what he could really do as a true number one without Amari Cooper. He had a fantastic season without Amari Cooper being there to be that second threat. I mean, Brandon Cooks also helps because he's just a speedster, can get downfield. But I mean, Ceedee Lamb can work slot. He can work the outside. He can work inside. He can catch the fade. He can run the streaks. He can run the post. He's a really great route runner. Like, what else do you want? Arguably, right now, Ceedee Lamb is a top 10 wide receiver from this past season. He's top 10 for sure. So, what's the point? Why are we so hesitant to pay him? Like, what's the problem? And the other issue, and I believe somebody brought this up, is that we had our chance to figure out this whole contract situation when we gave Dak Prescott the extension. We had 4 years to figure out a plan, and we didn't do anything. We sat on it, and now this is the consequences to our actions because we're trying to figure out how we're going to pay three different players. Even though I think Micah can honestly wait because he still has a couple of years left in his contract, but like Ceedee Lamb's up. Like this after this year, he's good. And here's the frustrating part because reports are coming out that he possibly may request a trade if he doesn't get his contract by minicamp, or I believe not by minicamp, by training camp. And that's the scary part. Is like we're already seeing the situation with the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk. You know how that's going on, and it's a hassle over there. And when you look at what's going on there, and you're looking at what's going on with Ceedee Lamb, and not even just what's going on in San Francisco. Look what happened in Minnesota. Like, look at that. Now, granted, they were in a little bit of a different situation because they were able to get Sam Darnold on the cheap, and they got a rookie quarterback. So they have basically the quarterback position, if you want to call it on lock, you can call it on lock. I don't think it is really, but let's keep going with this. They were able to pay Justin Jefferson. So they're a little bit of a different situation, and I know the 49ers are getting ready to prepare to pay Brock Purdy coming up. They already gave Christian McCaffrey a giant extension. That's why he had a big old fancy wedding. And then they already gave Debo his money. They gave Fred Warner money. They gave, I think Eric Armstead, is that his name? They gave him a lot of money. And not Eric Armstead. I think he went to the Colts. One of the defensive linemen, Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa, too, he got money. So I mean, they're just forking around money here. So, but they're trying to keep their key players. But the problem that Dallas is having right now is that they're trying to figure out, is it Dak or CD? There's only one of these guys that are holding out that has not showed up to mandatory minicamp, hasn't gone to OTAs. I mean, I just see him on Instagram doing workout videos, which is good. I mean, I'm glad he's putting in the work. But he's just waiting for a contract. And that's like the frustrating thing to me is that, dude, we got to figure out a way to get Ceedee Lamb back in the building because he's the only one not holding out. Dak hasn't held out, and neither has Micah Parsons. None of that has happened. So now with reports coming out, saying he might want to request a trade to leave Dallas because he wants to get paid his money that he's earned, and I do agree he's earned it. I believe there was someone that showed a graphic that if you compare him and Justin Jefferson, they're pretty close to numbers. I think Justin Jefferson just has more touchdowns, I believe, than Ceedee Lamb, but Justin Jefferson was a true number one right off the bat. Ceedee Lamb came in with Amari Cooper at the helm at the time. So if that doesn't show that Ceedee Lamb deserves his money, I don't know what else does. And requesting a trade, I think, is gonna be the ultimate scare for the Dallas Cowboys because if he actually does request a trade, like, what are we going to do? Like, honestly, like, what are we going to do? Because he now he wants to leave. You know what I mean? And the biggest problem I'm also having is that we're not prioritizing him right now. They're still trying to figure out something with Dak. And, I mean, I'm gonna go into the topic if Dak should ever hold out, and we'll get to that. But Dak's in the building. Dak is gonna show up. Dak is gonna come to training camp. He went to mini camp. He went to voluntary workouts. He's in the building. I don't believe he's planning to hold out. He's in the building. But what are we going to do without Ceedee Lamb? Because he's the only one and not in the building right now. Micah Parsons is going to minicamp. He went to OTAs. He's more than likely going to training camp. So Ceedee Lamb is the only one of that three not in the building. And that is the concerning part. And I believe that's why the Dallas Cowboys should be prioritizing Ceedee Lamb. I said in the last episode, it should be in this order: Ceedee Lamb, Dak, Micah. Or my bad, Ceedee Lamb, Micah, Dak. And it was one of those two. I'm blanking on which was, but I know Ceedee Lamb was first because he's not in the building. He is currently the only one holding out. And I believe he'll actually try to sit out. I don't think he'll sit out the season, but he'll sit out as much as he can until he gets what he wants. And I believe that's going to be the giant issue, is that what are we going to do whenever that happens? Sorry about that. So what are we going to do when that ultimately happens if he does decide to hold out the season because he's waiting for a contract? Now we're working with a wide receiver one that isn't there. You know what I mean? And here's the worst part of it all. And this is exactly where the Cowboys are putting themselves in the same problem with like Dak Prescott. Because if they wait and see if they're going to bet on Ceedee Lamb, or he says, I'm going to bet on myself then, what's going to happen if he has another Pro Bowl season? He breaks more records, or say, he breaks his own record that he set last year, that beating Michael Irving's record. I think he beat Des Bryant's record, some sort of record. And what happens if he keeps stat padding? It's the same problem with Dak. Someone's gonna pay Ceedee Lamb. Someone's gonna want Ceedee Lamb. It's not like his value in the market's gonna go down, because it's not. So that is my biggest issue, and that's why I'm having the difficulty understanding of why we're not prioritizing to pay Ceedee Lamb, and why we are not, trying to figure out a way to get Ceedee Lamb back into the building. Because right now it seems like they're like basically that the Cowboys are just sandbagging at this point. Like there's no other way like to describe it, because there's nothing getting done. And that's what I'm getting at, is that it's been a frustrating couple weeks with all these reports coming out. And I know like there was also reports that, like we're getting closer and closer to making a deal. We're meeting, we're trying, we're contacting Ceedee Lamb's agent. We're working up the contract stuff, and still nothing has happened. And that's the frustrating part, because every time, you see it from a reporter saying that, or you see it at a Cowboys camp saying that they're working on it and they're trying to figure out a way to, make it work with Ceedee Lamb and Dak and Micah. But in reality, I feel like just nothing's getting done. There's nothing obviously getting done, because nothing has been done. Like Ceedee Lamb is just posting pictures of him working out, which is good, because it's showing that he's still working out, getting in shape, running routes and everything. So he's preparing for the season. He's going to get ready. But how long do you think Ceedee Lamb will truly hold out? You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe he's going to hold out the season, because if something happens, he has the potential to also not get all his money if someone does decide to shine in his absence. And that's happened. We've seen that possibility happen. We've seen it at the quarterback spot. We've seen it on defense. We've seen it at wide receivers. We've seen it at running back. I mean, DeMarco Murray is the first one that comes to mind whenever they threw him in for Felix Jones, and he ended up taking over the starting spot and not giving it up ever. Brock Purdy, another example, came right in, and he ended up being better than the other two quarterbacks that they had in San Francisco. Like, there's a lot of examples of that, and then there's also the examples of if you try to bet on yourself, which isn't bad, but say something happens and you get injured, like what happened to Dak, now you may lose. I mean, Dak in his situation, he won that battle, but it was also because we were in a whole different situation there, which I'll get to a little bit later in this Cowboys talk. So there is that double-sided, the double-edged sword right there. Because if he does hold out and the Dallas Cowboys struggle, which I'm pretty sure we're going to, because a lot of our offense kind of ran with him, we're going to struggle really bad without him, because they're just going to double team Amari Cooper, and try to cover Jake Ferguson as much as they can. And like, what are we going to do then? And throw the ball to our 500 running backs that we have in the room? Like, that only takes you so far. So that is the biggest thing right now. And like, if we decide to struggle, not decide to struggle, if we decide to live with this and struggle, the Cowboys are just going to have to fork up more money in the end to Ceedee Lamb, because it's like, okay, like, because Ceedee Lamb's agent can come back and say, hey, you guys basically sucked without me. So now my price is up if you want my services, because you guys were so horrible without me. You guys were not as dominant of an offense as you once were when I was in the offense. And now you're kind of teetering towards on the bottom. So now my price is up. And that's why it's important to try to get him right now, while reports are saying that he wants to stay in Dallas. He just wants to get close to top market, not exactly Justin Jefferson, but kind of towards that top of Justin Jefferson. And I think he's absolutely deserved it. He's also, like I said, a crucial part in the offense. He needs to get paid. So we can't sit there and wait because all we're going to be doing is wasting more money in the end. And I think that's the problem in the front office right now is thinking, well, we can just wait and see. And that's honestly not how you should do it because clearly if you wait and see, you're going to end up forking more money or forking over more stuff, you're going to have less power in your situation because of the fact that Ceedee Lamb ended up having more power. It's going to be exactly like what happened with Dak in 2021. They're debating if they should re-sign him, and he had a horrible injury, and then he ended up getting what he wanted because we didn't have anyone to back him up. We were horrible at the quarterback position. So then ultimately Dak ended up with the most leverage over the Cowboys because now we're in year 4. He has a no trade clause. He has a no trade clause, and I think he has like another thing. He can't be franchise tagged. So who ended up winning that deal? And it's the same problem. It's basically history repeating itself with a different player because I'm sure Ceedee Lamb and his agent could come back and say the same thing. Like, well, I want a no trade clause, and I also don't want to be franchise tagged. Now, the Cowboys do have the option to franchise tag Ceedee Lamb. That is an option, but it's really going to be if Ceedee Lamb decides to take the extension for the year next year. And I highly doubt he will. I don't think he will because especially if he has another great monster year, he's going to want money. He's going to want a lot more money again, and that's going to be the frustrating part of the whole situation is that. So that is my biggest issue right now and how the Cowboys are essentially just handling Ceedee Lamb and his whole contract situation. As I said before, he deserves his money. If anybody deserves our money, it's him and Micah. Him and Micah have been game changers for that team. Dak has been around for 8 years already, and he got his money 4 years ago. Now it's time for these two guys to get their money. Obviously, I believe they picked up Micah's 5th-year option, which is, that's a no-brainer. And I think they have a little bit more time with Micah to work out a contract or figure out something with him. But right now, Ceedee Lamb's holding out. So Ceedee Lamb's not in the building. There's reports saying he may want to request a trade if he decides to do that. If he does not get his contract that he wants, and he's already held out of mandatory minicamp. At the end of the day, he's just losing money because they fine him every time you miss. Voluntary OTAs is not something to really, brag about. Missing because I know people do, players do their own workouts or whatever, or they're still rehabbing. Some players still, rehab during OTAs. But the entire point is that, Ceedee Lamb's not in the building. That is the biggest scare I think I have as a Cowboys fan is Ceedee Lamb is not in the building. If he was in the building and we're trying to work out a contract, at least I know he wants to be in the building and he's still, he may just bet on himself and wait for the contract next year or just maybe, buy some time to get paid. But he's not. He's clearly okay with holding out. Training camp's around the corner, and we got to get that man in the building. He needs to be number one, a Dallas Cowboy. I already got the Ceedee Lamb stuff, and he needs to be in the building. He needs to be playing for the Cowboys this year, and he needs to get his money right now. Alrighty, so moving on to the next topic. It's actually another question I got, not only from social media, but I also got it from some friends, and I actually heard this question too on a show a while, I think it was First Things First, and it was, or no, I believe maybe First Take. It was one of those two shows, and it was if Dak doesn't get his contract, because obviously Dak is the other one that wants a contract too, should he hold out? My answer is no. I don't think he should hold out. Here's the problem, and I've thought about this because let's go back to 2020, 2021 when he first was up for a contract, and he wanted top dollar, came in as a 4th-round draft pick, wasn't even supposed to start his rookie year. He was really just there to learn behind Romo, wait for Romo to, retire, or if they get rid of Romo, and then they move on to Dak. Nobody was expecting Dak Prescott to come in as early as he did. Not even Dak. I think Dak even admitted he didn't even think he was going to be there in the beginning, right when the season began. So, he came in, he did really well. He won an NFC East championship. He's gotten the playoffs. He's had a winning record the entire time he's been there up until 2020 when he had that horrific injury. Now, let's go to that. 2020 arrives. He says, I'm a bet on myself. I'm going to show you why you should be giving me money. And he had top numbers. He looked like a top guy. He had great numbers. We weren't winning because our defense was so horrible, but he was putting up numbers like crazy. But I mean, there's only so much a quarterback can do when your defense is literally almost dead last. Like we had such a horrible coordinator. And then he gets hurt. Now, here's why I bring up that year. Here's why I bring up the COVID year. Because that actually played in benefit for Dak Prescott. Because look where we were at whenever he got hurt. We threw in Andy Dalton because we signed Andy Dalton. I guess in case of the scenario that Dak decides to walk that next year, we have a veteran quarterback. Look how that worked out. He got hurt. I think within the first game or two of him being there, and he didn't have a good season. We drafted we brought in Ben DiNucci, which I believe he was an undrafted free agent. Or I think we drafted him. One of the two. We brought in Ben DiNucci. Now I think he's in the UFL right now, or the USFL. I know he did pretty well over there. I think he got signed with the Broncos. He had like a thing with the Broncos, something like that. But he's not in the NFL. He's not on a starting team. He was with the UFL. And then we brought in I think it's CJ Beathard, which or no, I forgot his name. But we brought in another quarterback. We had a horrible year. Like, that's just the bottom line of it. We had a horrible year. And that played into Dak's leverage because he was, literally the Cowboys proved that they can't run the offense without Dak. Literally, the Cowboys set themselves up because they thought maybe we can bring in, longtime veteran in Andy Dalton, which, let's be honest, he was old. He got to that point. I mean, he didn't do well in Cincinnati his final year. That's why they let him walk, because they were going to get Joe Burrow. And he was at the tail end of his career, and that was it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if the Cowboys were actually believing, like, well, if Dak leaves, we still have Andy Dalton, that didn't really get us super far. We drafted a Ben DiNucci, who's like a gunslinging quarterback in college. That didn't work out. We had to bring in a free agent, just sitting on the couch essentially, to come in, and it was just a disaster. Like it was a disaster season. And then on top of all that, the defense was like the worst defense in Dallas Cowboys history, and we've had a history of having at least a decent defense to a great defense. I mean, Doomsday Dallas. This past year, we had a really great defense side of the run game. Jesus Christ, the run game. And we didn't. And that was like the worst part of it all, was that, hey, we can't, we couldn't move the ball. We struggled moving the ball. And ironically, we still had a chance to make the playoffs, but our division was just so horrible that year. And we had a chance to make, the playoffs. We obviously didn't. And then we had a horrible defense. Like, so you wrap all that up, yeah, Dak's going to walk out with the most leverage because, I'm sure his agent turned around to Jerry and said, listen, he broke his ankle for you because he betted on himself because you didn't want to pay him. And he was out, and look where your team was at. And that's leverage. That's leverage that Dak Prescott gained over Jerry Jones. So it was kind of one of those like, oh, do we take a chance on the draft, or or is it going to be this? Are we going to be back in the same situation? So he caved and gave Dak his money, and he got all those perks and all those terms. And now we're going to fast forward 4 years to here. Here's why he shouldn't hold out. And I've heard the argument of, well, if he bets on himself again and he gets hurt again, I mean, what is that going to do? Well, the Cowboys just injured Dak twice because they didn't want to pay him his money. Now, do I think Dak should get paid? I think he should get a contract. We got to fix the playoff problem, but he still gives the Dallas Cowboys a good position to make the playoffs. Aside of his 2020 year when he got hurt and had a horrible defense, the whole rest of the time he was with the Cowboys, he had a winning season. And he's won multiple NFC East titles. So he has I think he has the best record in the NFC East against all the NFC East teams. He has the best best win-loss percentage. So he gives us a fair chance to get in the playoffs. So I don't think that, he's a bad quarterback, because he's not. I mean, you can ask any analyst, any person, if he's not top 5, he's top 10. This past year, this past season, he was like top 2 because Lamar won the MVP, but Dak was right behind him. So he's proven that he could be that top quarterback. But obviously, I know everyone loves to use the playoff. Like, well, he only won 2 games in the playoffs. Well, you know what? So did Lamar Jackson. He hasn't won anything that much either. Justin Herbert went to the playoffs and he lost. He blew a 28-0 lead. So there's other good quarterbacks that people say are better that haven't won much either in the playoffs, and everyone says that they deserve their money. Whatever. The only difference, Lamar has won MVPs. Justin Herbert won a Rookie of the Year like Dak, but Justin Herbert blew a 28-0 lead in the playoffs. At least we lost. We lost altogether. But either way, we continue this path of, now we're here wondering what's going to happen with Dak. Dak has shown up to camps and all that, so I don't think he's planning to hold out. But the reason why he shouldn't is because of Trey Lance. Now, hear me out. Stay with me. Now, Trey Lance got brought in from the 49ers, right? We traded for him for a third string or a backup, and now, according to reports and stuff coming out of their camp, Trey Lance is improving. Trey Lance is showing that he is, he's getting better. Apparently he's more comfortable in the offense. He's learned it. He picked it up. He's running the offense to pretty smoothly, and I think that's the concerning part, because if you go back to when the first contract year, 2020, I mean, I feel like the Cowboys weren't really bought in on Andy Dalton because they just brought him in case Dak walked. Then they had a veteran quarterback to rely on, and if that didn't go well, they can go get a quarterback in the draft. But, they didn't have faith in him. They didn't have faith in Ben DiNucci. They didn't have faith in Cooper Rush. They didn't have faith in all these quarterbacks that they try to run with, this giant roulette of quarterbacks that they brought in, and nothing worked. So they didn't have that advantage because, Dak showed that they needed him. But now, fast forward to this contract year, and the problem that the Cowboys or Dak is going to have is that the Cowboys may actually say, okay, hold out. We're just going to see what's going to happen with Trey Lance. And in the chance and the off chance that Trey Lance actually has some success in Dallas, guess what happens to Dak's contract? It's going to go down. His value is going to go down because the Cowboys are going to turn around and say, you held out. This guy basically did your job. Maybe put us in the same spot you would have put us in. Deuces. They'll let him walk. And then, guess what? When he goes to that next team, they're going to come, they can probably use that against him and say, well, you held out. The Cowboys found they brought in Trey Lance and he did really well. Or they were in the same spot that you would have put them in. Why should I give you a lot of money? Now, granted, I think no matter what, if he leaves or not, he's probably going to get a lot of money. But that's my problem. Or that's the fear I have for Dak, is that if he holds out and Trey Lance is improving and showing his improvement, like all the Cowboys reports are saying and things coming out of the camp, Dak's going to have a real problem because Jerry may let him actually walk out the door because they're going to say, well, you know what, fine. Trey Lance will take less money so we can pay these other guys and we can build a team around him. And guess what? Dak's time in Dallas is over. So now he's got to go. So that's why I don't think he should. Because also, if he still shows that he can have another MVP-like year again, I mean, he's just going to have more money. He's going to have a chance to make more money. Granted, he can still make less if he gets injured again. Knock on wood that, he doesn't. But, sorry, knocking on wood here. And then they still go with Trey Lance either way. But that's the main reason why they brought in Trey Lance, because he's younger. He came off an injury. They're giving him time to learn the offense. They're basically preparing for the future, which is not a bad thing. But for Dak, it is a bad thing because maybe the future might be around the corner. And if you're Dak Prescott, you don't want that because you played at an MVP high level, and now they're trying to bring in somebody else. And I think that the Cowboys are actually truly believing in Trey Lance, and I think that's even the scariest part of it all is that the Cowboys are actually believing in Trey Lance, which is going to further solidify that he may stay and he may be the starter if Dak decides to walk out after this year, or if he decides to hold out and Trey Lance comes in and has a good year. So that's my biggest scare for Dak is he can't hold out. If there was a year to hold out, it should have been 2020. 2020 should have been the year he probably should have held out. Because now they brought in, the Cowboys brought in a quarterback that apparently they're all loving. They're brought in somebody that's showing that he is developing well and he is, running the offense smoothly. Now, granted, it's a help to Dak because Dak, when he came in, Dak started helping him out. It wasn't like a Jalen Hurts situation with Kenny Pickett. He's like, why the heck is this guy here? So, granted, credit to Dak for helping him out, but the Cowboys seem like they're truly believing in Trey Lance being possibly the future if Dak walks. So now we're in that problem, which more than likely Dak's gonna have another prove it year, and if he has another MVP, guess what? He can just turn around, or if he actually wins MVP this year, he could turn around and say, "Boom, MVP! You have an MVP quarterback on your hands. Where's my money? Now I want more because and the market's just gonna go up. And who knows what's gonna happen with Tua Tagovailoa because he's gonna get his contract too coming up, and the Dolphins are kind of holding off on that too. So which we'll get to that a little bit later. So now we're at this junction of you know what's gonna happen to Dak if he does the choices he makes. I believe is gonna really affect what's gonna happen in the season. Because if he decides to hold out, I mean, is Trey Lance going to be good or not? If not, then Dak's going to have the most leverage ever because he's like, well, you waited 4 years to see if you bring in somebody. You sucked without me. Now I want more money. Or flip it, Trey Lance does really well, and now Dak's stock goes down in Dallas, and they let him walk out in free agency next year. So either way, whichever way Dak does it, he shouldn't hold out because they are having so much belief in Trey Lance, and I feel like that's what everyone's not talking about right now. Everyone that's saying like should he hold out, it's a yes or no. Everyone's saying yes because that way he can avoid getting injured, he can get his contract. It's because well, Ceedee Lamb's holding out, and I'm gonna hold out. They can't not pay us both. I've heard that he shouldn't because he hasn't proved he earned the money, but I feel like no one's talking about the Trey Lance thing because everyone's believing in Trey Lance in that organization is that he might be the future. They're preparing for Dak to leave in case they let him walk. Now, whether it's NFC East Championship or bust at this point for Dak this upcoming season, that's going to be the deciding factor there. But we have to understand that we don't know if the grass is going to be greener on the other side of Dak. We don't know. Keep in mind, Trey Lance did have a history of getting injured. He got injured a lot in San Francisco, and they had a good line. He just got hurt. Hopefully these past couple years he sat, behind Dak. He not rested. He worked out, but he made sure he was good, rehabilitated appropriately because he didn't have to. He didn't have the stress of going in and starting. He can learn behind Dak, which is a good thing because I think they're pretty similar in play style. But for Dak, if he sits out and they just throw in Trey Lance, he's screwed. Because if they're just going to sit there and say, we're going to believe in this kid, he'll take less money, kick rocks. Goodbye. And that's going to hurt Dak because now he's got to go. More likely someone's going to pick him up. Everyone's saying it's going to be the Giants. I hope not. But we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with this whole situation. But I don't think Dak should hold out just not because of, it's not going to be good for him. It's more of, it might honestly put his starting position in jeopardy because he's going to be, stuck with trying to pass Trey Lance or not letting Trey Lance pass him. So that's going to be the ultimate fear, in my opinion. Alrighty, so moving on with Cowboys talk. Let's keep doing this. So I got two more things to talk about before we move to around the NFL. And this was both sides of the ball. There's just trouble in paradise in the Big D because, Jesus, there's so much going on. And now this came up. This came up, I believe, when I was coming back from vacation. It was, so there was a Malik Hooker, safety for the Dallas Cowboys, right? He went on a podcast with Keyshawn Johnson, and they brought up Micah Parsons' contract and all this stuff, and he kind of made a comment saying like, well, if he focused more on his game than the podcast, maybe we could stop the run. And Micah saw that, and he tweeted, well, I wish you would have messaged me about this. We're literally locker roomies, or not locker roomies, but they're like locker neighbors. And you should have just told me. You should have called me first, and not just go on a podcast. And Jesus, that was crazy. And here's my reaction to it. First off, I don't have a problem if you call somebody out. I really don't, especially if it's if it's something like that. Like, hey, like to me, if you're a true friend, and this is like outside of like anything, if you're a true friend and you or a true teammate, you're gonna call out the faults. I've had teammates, that criticize whenever I played football. Like, hey, you run a route too shallow. You don't take the right steps. Hey, you should curve inside. I've heard that. Or hey, you need to step up the blocking. You need to hit the weight room. You need to get stronger. You need to get faster to benefit to help us. Our same thing with track and even just work. Like just a profession. Like, hey, you need to do a little bit better on camera. You need to do a little bit better with a setup, something like that. And that's just life. And I don't knock Malik Hooker for that. Where I kind of do knock him a little bit because it won't destroy chemistry on the field, but I think like just in the locker room, it's good, because Micah's gonna be like, "What the heck was that about?" And like I think the way he went about it was like incorrect. I think that he should have not said it on the podcast. I feel like there's just some things you don't bring up. And I understand like obviously everyone that goes on a podcast a lot of the time it's like not to air out dirty laundry. It's just like sometimes they got to get it off their chest. And I really get that. Like, okay, you got to get it off your chest. Obviously, the Dak situation, the Ceedee Lamb situation, I got to get off my chest. Love my Dallas Cowboys, but I also call out the faults here. And the problem I have is that he did it. He's right next to Micah. He knows Micah. They've worked with each other for a couple years now. He has his number. He can contact Micah. And that was my biggest problem is the way he went about it. If he didn't say it on the podcast and he told Micah like, pulling him to the side saying, "Hey man, like I respect what you're doing." I mean, there's nothing wrong with the podcast. Clearly, there's nothing wrong with the podcast here. Um but I do understand in this point, like like maybe he wants to, like, hey, we gotta fix a major problem. It's been a problem for 2 years. We gotta fix it. Like, can you kind of figure out a way to you know maybe lessen the podcast, like, hey, or just be honest with them, like, hey, we gotta stop the run. You're the superstar. We gotta figure something out. Like, I need you. We need you in there. Not, hey, I gotta go because I gotta shoot a podcast. Now, granted, granted a podcast does like shooting it. Maybe, well, I know he has a whole team that helps him out. Me, it's a little bit different because I kind of do everything myself. But I understand like he has a whole team, so maybe it takes like 2 hours out of his day. I understand like it's a business at the end of the day. NFL is not guaranteed you're gonna get the max contract you want. It's not a guarantee you're gonna be in the NFL for so many years. So obviously, kind of preparing for you know what's gonna happen outside of football, which is honestly like, I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, it's even the stuff I express to my students when some of them want to go to the NFL and all that, and they're like, "Oh, I want to be one and done and go to the NBA." And I tell them, I don't think you should because if something happens, God forbid something happens to you, and now you're stuck with nothing. Now you don't have a fallback plan, And that's kind of like why I'm not so mad about the podcasting. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I do it, but I think just the way, like I said, Malik Hooker went about it and said it on a podcast, and now everyone can hear his business, and like he has a big problem with Micah being on his podcast, or he feels like the podcast is taking him away from the game because he's on it so much, doing all these things, and he's like, we haven't been able to stop the run the last 2 years. And we need you. I need you to kind of come in a little bit more. And I think if you want to went about it that way and kind of just told Micah face to face, and like Micah said, dude, you're literally right next to me in my locker room. You could say something. You could text me. You can call me. And he deleted the tweet, but I mean, it is what it is now. But I agreed with I agreed with Micah on this one. I think the way he went about it was incorrect. I agree with the call out. Yeah, I think like if you have a problem like that, express it, especially to your teammate, especially to the superstar. Express it. Hey, like I need you to come in. Like we need to fix stopping the run. And whether that's we got to take a little bit of time from your podcast or figure something out. But we need to stop the run. We got to figure out a way to stop the run. And we can't do that if you're gone. Please, can you figure out a way, maybe tell the podcasting, like I'll be gone for like a week and then I'll come back like a bi-weekly thing or something like that. And if you would have told him face to face, I feel like it would have been an easier way to work it out. But he called him out on his podcast, on Keyshawn's podcast, and now we're here. And I did like how Keyshawn, when they addressed Keyshawn, they're like, why are you stirring up stuff in Dallas? He's just like, I just ask questions. They're the ones that just start airing stuff out. Which, I mean, granted, I understand. I think I saw a podcast episode with Lonzo Ball, and he explained that Big Baller Brand shoes. That's why his knee was so messed up, because they would tear every quarter. I'm like, well, no wonder your knee sucks, because you have shoes that weren't the best. And but he airs it out on the podcast, which is nothing wrong with it. I mean, granted, you could tell people what you want if you're not tied down to an NDA, but there's certain things you discuss and there's certain things you don't discuss. And I think like this situation, it should have been handled internally. I'm just a big believer in that. Handle it internally. If it doesn't work out internally, I mean, you can kind of come back around and say like, well, I asked him, he didn't want to do it. He prioritized the podcast more, and now we still can't stop the run. But it's also the other side too. He can do that, and Micah could take time away from his business, and he can come back and say, well, I came in, I took time away from my business, and we still can't stop the run. So clearly, I'm not the problem, you know. And here's like the worst part of it all, and it was something somebody brought up one day, was that whenever I first heard about it, was if Micah gets like, he's the superstar of the team, or at least on that defensive side of the ball, he has a lot to say and he has a lot of pull in that front office. He can come around and say, hey, I don't want to play with Malik Hooker. I want him out of here. It's him or me. And I'm sorry, Malik, but they're going to pick Micah over you. So that's why it was also like, it's better to handle stuff internally before you start airing stuff out, and it just makes the situation worse. Now, maybe they probably patched things up. I hope they did, because I don't think it'll affect anything on the field, but definitely that uneasiness, like in the locker room of like, walking around, and especially since you're right next to each other, like your lockers are right next to each other, that's even worse, because it's like, whoa, hey, like, you're just going to walk up and just see them, and you're just going to eyeball him and side eye him, and it's just not going to be good. I guess it's gonna hurt really more the locker room than anything, because it's gonna be so odd, and kind of going, and I guess kind of going at it that way. But also, like I said, Micah might have a lot of pull this upcoming year, next year. He can request to get out and say, well, it's Malik Hooker or me. And they're probably going to choose Micah over Malik. So that's why I'm like, I would be careful with how you're kind of say things and kind of go on podcasts and just talk about stuff and kind of just air stuff out, because that's a very thin line you want to walk. So hopefully everything gets squared up, and by training camp, and squash the beef. But I mean, that's just kind of my advice to anybody. Just don't go on a podcast and air out not dirty laundry, but don't get it off your chest and not tell somebody. At least like I think with with like I said, like another example is the Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless thing. He got it off his chest about why he was mad. I mean, before he started telling people on the podcast what happened, I mean, he already got it off his chest and all this stuff, probably like to exec and producers to try to, and Skip to kind of fix things, and it just didn't work out. And sometimes that happens, Sometimes you do try to handle it internally, doesn't work, but you can turn around and say, well, I discussed it with Micah, it didn't work, I tried to get him in, and he wouldn't do it. Guess what? It's something they have to live with, not you, because you did your part. So that's how I see it. So hopefully, like I said, it all gets squared away and we're good. Alrighty, last topic for Cowboys talk. Report coming out of the camp. Apparently, Mike McCarthy not liking getting Big D anymore. So there's a report saying that Mike McCarthy is getting really fed up with Jerry Jones's non-active off seasons. I guess is a good way to put it, because we were not very active. We got we got Eric Kendricks. We kind of made some moves, but not really a lot. The draft went pretty good, in my opinion. I thought we had some good draft picks. But the other thing that is like frustrating him is because like we're not bringing in people. The whole contract situation. He's not having his players. Apparently, there's turmoil happening in the locker room. Like there's a lot going on, and Mike McCarthy's not being happy with Jerry Jones in the front office, because it's like, dude, like what are we doing? Like, we didn't bring in anybody after you clearly told everybody in the media that we're going all in. We haven't brought in much. We brought in two freaking running backs that we didn't really need, not really necessarily needed. We let Tony Pollard walk. Ceedee Lamb's not in the building. Who knows if Dak's going to be in the building? Basically the house is under fire here. And that's not good for anybody. So, I can understand the frustration, because, I mean, I'm frustrated. I don't even work for them. So, that is clearly easily understandable about why he's mad, because this is a very frustrating thing to deal with, especially being the head coach, and you're kind of just giving the team what you get, especially with management like this that's not very in on free agents. They rather just go through the draft and kind of go through there. Now, granted, we have a good history of drafting good. I mean, look at the people we drafted, but like I said, the other problem we're having is we got to keep up with these teams that are just getting free agents left and right because they know what's going to help their team. I mean, look at the Atlanta Falcons. They just upgraded a lot because they finally got a decent quarterback that can play. And then you look at the other side of it. The Chargers got rid of, Mike Williams, and they got rid of Keenan Allen, and now they really don't have a number one. And Austin Eckler walked, and they drafted a running back. So it's kind of, it's kind of a tough one. You could see both sides of a coin here. So in reality, like this is just like making things worse because you could see like these teams made improvements. The Eagles, went out and fixed their secondary because their secondary was not that good. They're trying to fix the defense a little bit. The Commanders got a new offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury. They got a new quarterback. The Giants brought in Malik Neighbors. So there's a lot of teams improving, and then obviously the San Francisco brought back Christian McCaffrey. They're about to get ready to pay Brock. Like they have everything set for them. It's the same teams too. Green Bay got better, because they made some moves. Even looking at the AFC, like a lot of teams over there made a lot of big moves. So there's, and then letting also Tyron Smith walk, letting all these guys leave. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around as a head coach because it's frustrating. So I can understand Mike McCarthy is just giant frustration because of just how everything's going for the team right now. Now, like I said, hopefully things change. Hopefully, I hope we get Ceedee Lamb back. As of this recording, nothing has been reported. Nothing has been confirmed that he is coming back. So we're just, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with everything that's with that and go about it that way. Sorry, I was trying to check if there was an update on Ceedee Lamb. There isn't. But there hasn't been an update as of this recording. So hopefully things get fixed in Dallas. And it feels like the stars under fire. That fancy $1 million project in Frisco, it seems like it's on fire right now with all the problems going on. So, it's tough. It's tough. But I know the rest of y'all are laughing at us right now. Just laughing. But moving on, we're going around the NFL. So now we're going to talk about my perspective of certain NFL teams through the eyes of a Cowboys fan. So first up, I hate this guy. I hate giving this guy just the attention. I hate it. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Just saying his name frustrates me. Now, if you guys have watched my podcast for a while, I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan. I don't like the guy personally. Not that I ever met him. It's just the actions that he's done. I don't like. I don't like at all. I don't knock his talent. I don't knock his quarterback play. Do I think he's a really great quarterback? Yeah, he's going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Definitely one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the game. But his cockiness, the arrogance just frustrates me. And here's the thing is that there was the story of him that apparently he missed mandatory minicamp because he took a trip to Egypt. Now, here's my problem. I did have a problem with him missing minicamp because first of all, he only played 2 snaps and then he broke and then he got hurt. He was out for the year. What happens when you don't practice or play football for so long? Ask Deshaun Watson what happens to you if you do not play for so long after coming off an injury. You regress. He's getting older. And that's my thing is that he doesn't understand. And I feel like he doesn't understand that because he's like, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to be great no matter what. And he probably will. But what's the point of that if you're not winning championships, you're not getting into the playoffs, you're still, you had an MVP year, but you're not going anywhere. What's the point in that? Like, what's literally the point? He won 1 Super Bowl and hasn't been back since. He's won multiple MVPs, but where has his team gone? He threatened the whole retirement thing for like 2-3 years to retire, and he just won't do it. I think he just loves attention at this point, and that's why I hate that I'm giving it to him. But that's the Egypt problem. I had a problem with the Egypt thing because number one, you've been gone, you've been hurt. I think like OTAs and minicamp with the team. First of all, it shows that you want to come in, and you're committed to coming back and trying to make it better, have a better season than we did last year. Because the Jets were horrible last year. Not from their defense. I believe their defense was pretty good, but they just didn't have a quarterback. And they're relying on Aaron Rodgers. That's why they're going all in. And I think that is the problem that the Jets are going to have with Aaron Rodgers. And the problem I had with the Egypt thing is that he missed minicamp, and everyone's like, it doesn't matter. It's just practice. He's been injured. It was different. if it would have been different if like, something would have happened, like, oh, my brother, my sister had a baby. I went to the birth. Okay, I have a family member in the hospital. It might be time to say goodbye. I'm not gonna be able to make it. Okay, like family emergency stuff, but trips, vacations for what? A psychedelic thing that he likes to do? Because I guess he thinks he's a hippie. I don't know. Dude, you can honestly reschedule that. It's very easy to pick up the phone, call the airline, the hotel. Hey, I just found out this is what mini camp is. I kind of have to go because I'm kind of quote unquote the leader of the team. So, can we reschedule for another time? Or I don't know. Can I? How about next? Whatever. That's simple. You can do that. It's really easy, especially if you traveled before and you got to cancel plans for whatever something happened. That's easy. You can do that. He refuses to do that because he thinks he's bigger than the Jets. Because basically, he thinks the Jets are nothing without him, which I mean is basically true. They've been nothing for a while. And that is the frustrating part with Aaron Rodgers, and it just ticks me off. And here's the other problem I'm having because I believe right now the Jets are making the same mistakes the Green Bay Packers are making. They're appeasing Aaron Rodgers. They're letting him get away with stuff. After Robert Saleh, said like, I don't know where Aaron is, it's not excused. And the organization didn't back him on that. They were like, he came back and like, oh, we're good. Everything's handled. So they made Robert Saleh look like the freaking idiot on TV. Why would you do that? No, I would have backed with the head coach and say, we don't know where Aaron is. Especially if they brought him in and his whole thing is, oh yeah, I want to win. I want to make the city proud. How are you doing that when you're across the, thousands of miles on the other side of the world? How are you doing that? Missing camp. You already missed the whole season because you got hurt because you had a bad offensive line. So you didn't even show that you guys are going to be good with you. He didn't even get a chance to. So, and he's getting up there in age. It's not like he's 20 something like Burrow or Dak or Patrick, and these other quarterbacks are also coming up and surpassing him. That's what I don't understand. For how arrogant he is and how showing how good he wants to be, how come that doesn't drive him to be better? He's just like, yeah, I want MVPs. That's all I need. And why are you like why? Like why is that a thing? And the Jets are letting it happen because of the actions that they showed. They're showing that they will appease Aaron Rodgers. They will allow him to do whatever the heck he wants, like Green Bay did. And look how that worked out for Green Bay. They appeased him. They fired coaches. They brought back Randall Cobb. They did all these things to try to keep Aaron there, and he still ultimately ended up leaving. He threatened to retire. All these things, and why? Because the Packers didn't step up to Aaron Rodgers. They refused to, and now the Jets are doing it because they feel like without Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be screwed. Granted, that might be the case, but at least you could take your organization serious, saying, dude, you weren't here. You didn't go to Egypt for a family emergency. It wasn't something that was, really necessary. You could have rescheduled. You already had, I'm sure they give him the dates for everything way ahead in time. So he could have, rescheduled it. And if it's like, well, that whole psychedelic thing that he was doing wasn't really there at that time, okay, guess what? I'm sure it's not going anywhere anytime soon. You can honestly wait. Or if you guys don't make it to the playoffs, do it then. Because then you'll be free in January. You'll be free in February. You'll be free in March. And he had a whole offseason to figure that out. And it's like, well, because he was, trying to figure out his whole injury situation. Okay, well, good for you. Still could have gone done it. You sit there. You kind of just sit down. You can do that. So it's very frustrating to me because he's a really great talent, and I will never deny that. If anybody ever asks me like, well, you don't like Aaron Rodgers, like you think he's a bad quarterback, I don't think he's a bad quarterback at all. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he will go down as one of the best. He will definitely go down as one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, I've seen him for about almost 2 decades. I've seen him play, but the arrogance, the cockiness is the biggest problem for me. It just is. Because I can understand people need time, they need a break. And I get it. But you also can't do that and prioritize that over a team that you said you want to come make better because of your ego. You claim that you can maybe win something for the New York Jets. And last year you played 2 snaps and broke, and basically your body broke. And you're pushing 40. He's getting up there in age. dude, you gotta be in the building. You gotta be working on stuff. I'm not saying he doesn't work on stuff, but when you get reports and stories like that, and I got a lot of people saying it's not a big deal, I think it is because not only is it showing Aaron Rodgers probably still doesn't care, but it's also showing that the Jets are literally appeasing him, just like the Packers did. And look what happened to the Packers. I'm just saying, just something to put out there. All right, so moving on. San Francisco 49ers and Brandon Ayuk still a heated debate if they're gonna let him go. I think I saw the report that they're gonna try to get him to stay, but they're working on it. I think that either way, either if they keep Brandon Ayuk, someone's got to go. Either whether it be Debo or somebody else or Brandon Jennings, they try to trade him for something. It's a tough situation, I think, in San Francisco just because I know they're getting ready to pay Brock Purdy. He's probably about to get a giant payday because of how successful he's been, especially being the last pick in the draft. So I think that Brandon Ayuk right now is in a very tough situation because obviously the organization I think does value Brandon Ayuk. I just believe that they're going about it wrong too because they're saying they don't have any money, but then they extended Brandon Jennings. They gave Christian McCaffrey a 2-year extension, and they're getting ready for Brock Purdy. And he's like, well, where's my money? I'm a helpful point. He got less receptions, but had a ton of yards last year. So he clearly is a valuable asset to the team. And I don't think that the 49ers are denying that, but it's also they need to start showing him some sort of respect because there's got to be at some point you say, yeah, Brock is our guy. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where I'm at with this whole situation. He needs to be shown that he's loved. And if the 49ers really want him back, they need to fork up some money. They paid all these people. Like they paid McCaffrey, they paid Debo, they paid Nick, they paid George Kittle, they paid all these guys. So clearly they could find a way to pay Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy coming in. So hopefully that whole thing gets resolved. Honestly, I really don't. I hope that Brandon Ayuk leaves, and I hope the 49ers just have a horrible season just because it'd be great. It'd be great for my mental state to see them crash and burn. Yes. So, moving on. So, now we're going to move on to, like I said, Miami and Tua. Apparently, they're having contract problems. Tua wants pretty good money, but the Miami's not committed on paying him that kind of money. I think they're a little bit of a different situation, and I kind of am not mad at their situation because they're like really hesitant to pay Tua a lot of money because of the injuries in his past. That I believe is a legitimate concern. That is a legitimate. I don't know, buddy, because you have been hurt and you've been hurt a lot. I mean, 2 concussions almost basically took him out of the NFL. I think he had like knee replacement surgery. I think he tore his ACL. He had like a hip thing in college. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that he's had. There's a lot of injuries and wear and tear he's had on his body. And oh my God, like I saw the picture of him and all the Ozempic jokes that they were making. Jeez, he is lean. He is lean. I did find it funny. Tyreek Hill did say, "I like chunky too." That was pretty funny. But like I think the Miami Dolphins do have a legitimate argument for being very hesitant for the contract for Tua Tagovailoa because he has had a lot of injury reports. So, and I believe that's going to be kind of Tua's downfall. Not because he's a bad player. I think he's a decent quarterback. I think maybe it's more his system. Really, the system that they run with over there in Miami is very fitting for him, and I believe that's why they're having a lot of success is because it's fitting. Because I mean, heck, they almost won a playoff game, and they had to throw in like the fifth string quarterback in the playoff game. So it works. So hopefully, or I think they won that game. No, they did win that playoff game. Oh my God, they won a playoff game with like a fifth string quarterback. So they clearly can run it. Just and all the weapons he has, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, all those guys, and freaking just a plethora of running backs, like and a decent defense. They can really do some damage, but obviously playoff time they go in the cold weather just really kills them for some reason. Not surprised, but I mean makes sense. So I think that right now, like Miami does have a pretty legitimate reason to be very very hesitant. Like I said, just because they're gambling a lot with Tua Tagovailoa because I mean off chance he hurts himself again and now they just paid that man close to Joe Burrow money and he can't even play. They're basically back with like what happened in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson. So I think that Tua is gonna get paid. I don't think he's gonna get top dollar money. I think he'll probably get middle pack, probably middle to low. After this next year, he's probably gonna get middle to low. So But I also know from Tua's he's trying to be secure in case something happens to him again. But that's a real that one is a very dangerous fine line you're kind of walking there, just because, like I said, you are very, like I said, he's very injury prone, and that's the biggest concern right now is trying to make sure he's going to be healthy for the long run. So. Alrighty, guys. So one more thing before we go. I did get this kind of idea from Stats Over Feelings. That guy, he's very great content on his TikTok. Love his stuff. So you definitely go check him out. And what's it called? Sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now. I've been blanking a lot lately. But Stats Over Feelings, check out them on TikTok. And it's three things I want to see this upcoming year. So I kind of want to get that started at the end of the episode. So three things I want to see. So three things I want to see. Let's go with the Dallas Cowboys, obviously America's team. Three things I want to see: Ceedee Lamb back. So three things I want to see is number one, an improved defense. I think that Mike Zimmer coming in and probably prioritizing more to stop the run is going to be a very big help. Trayvon Diggs is coming back. Deron Bland had a great year, so he's shown that he can be at corner. I think I'm okay with him being back, being at corner two. Really, nickel three is going to be my biggest concern. We brought in a lot of linebackers to help out with that linebacking core, so that's going to be great. So kind of like an improvement on stopping the run is one of the things I want to see from the defensive side of the ball, or at least one of the things for the Dallas Cowboys. Two, I kind of want to see the offense keep growing too. I want to see that Dak win an MVP, hopefully with Ceedee Lamb back. Actually, I'll put that at two. I want to see them committing. I want to see the Cowboys committing to bring back Ceedee Lamb, and that way we have more potential to be good and make the playoffs than running without a wide receiver, and the Cowboys got to pay a lot of money. So that's kind of number two I want to see. And number three, actually a very interesting one. I want to see the rise of Overshawn, DeMarvin Overshawn. That the linebacker from Texas last year tore his ACL in the preseason. It was very heartbreaking because he showed that he is so good. That is one of the players I'm really excited to see. I believe he's going to play either middle or outside linebacker. I think he'd be a pretty good middle linebacker to replace Leighton Vander Esch, and I'm very excited. He's very fast, very very like explosive, strong. I mean, I remember seeing him for Texas OU games, and geez, he was tough. He was tough to handle, even Texas and Texas Tech. Geez, he was a tough linebacker to guard, and he was. And he can read coverage. He can go into coverage pretty well. He can make good open field tackles. Hopefully, the recovery from his ACL tear is going to be good, and he's going to be able to succeed this upcoming year and kind of show that he's going to be the next, breakout linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. But alrighty, guys, that's going to wrap things up for this episode of the Cowboys Fan versus the World podcast. Hope everyone's going to have a safe and a great 4th of July. Make sure you guys follow me on all of my socials. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, at Cowboys Fan versus the World. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button to Cowboys Fan versus the World. I'm also on. This will also be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. I'm still trying to fix that problem. I think it's just something with my computer not letting me upload the file. So I'm gonna get that fixed hopefully soon and kind of go from there. But until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later.